like to ask a question. I thought I would start with something on my own. You mentioned, so the ethical frameworks, but you did mention the conservative worry that my job will go to the AI, and you said you are a believer in progress. And I believe that to be true, but how can you answer those people better than just saying, progress has always been good, progress is great, don't worry about nothing? How do we quell those fears? How do we make those people feel easier?
Lifelong learning has to become as a reality. So it's not enough just to believe that they will find something for me also. If it's possible, every day we have to get some new skills. So just recently I got a new service car. Maybe it's not good to talk about my service car, but it's a pretty good car. Right. S-Class Mercedes, prolonged, and so on.
I mean, you have a fairly low position.
So in the European Commission, we have some kind of policy. So they will change your service car when you reach 100,000 kilometers or 2.5 years. So I thought my old car, so-called old car, was really old, 2.5 years. And I thought that when I will get this new car, the only difference will be this smell of leather in my new car, because this old car was really ugly car already without this good smell. Well, but when I got this new car, it was wow! Like this fashion show we had here. So, you don't have to have look on those speed limits anymore. This adaptive speed control, this is really soft, keeping distance, picking up those speed limits, speeding up, breaking down, even car says that put your hands on driving wheel, but in fact it's not needed. So I was so happy with this new car. So next day I told to my driver that try to use this. Sorry, don't quote, but he was practically panicking. It was so complicated for him to use this distronic system that they called this adaptive cruise control in Mercedes cars as distronic. He was panicking. And from Brussels to Luxembourg, yes, he tried to use. When he used still his legs, then I of course asked why you did this. But from Luxembourg to Strasbourg, he didn't pay any attention on this distronic anymore, and that's it. Well, then I tried to explain that, look, in the airplanes, 20 years ago, they got those automated landing and takeoff systems. When they got those autopilots, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 years ago already. And then there were also some pilots sitting in those cockpits who said that I would like to keep this plane under my control, and only then I can be sure that nothing will happen with this plane. As my driver told me, nothing will happen if he will keep this car under his control. But there are still at least two pilots sitting in cockpits. And you cannot find in cockpits those pilots who said 20 years ago that they would like to keep this plane under their control. In fact, when talking about sensors, when talking about 5G, then we have to think about milliseconds. But for human beings, it's so that catching a signal, sending to your brain, it takes 0.1 second, and then to send this message to your muscles, another 0.1 seconds if you are not using volt waiting for command. And in practice, it's impossible to compete by human beings with systems based on artificial intelligence, based on sensors, etc. So, the only message to people who will most likely lose their jobs is try to adapt. Try every day, get something new. Because one day, if we will get those self-driving cars, connected cars, it will be too late for those people to try to jump.
So begin now is the question, begin now. And I would say that definitely in Estonia we don't worry about those pilots because we don't have any pilots, because we don't have an airline. So they didn't have to worry about that in the end anyway, so it's fine. We had a question over there, the first gentleman that I was pointing to.
Sorry, it wasn't about airplanes and cars and drivers, it was about all of us. So, lifelong learning, it's a must.
Please, sir.
Thank you very much. I had a question regarding data. As you mentioned, data is becoming the new gold. From a public perspective, it would be easy to provide AI startups with that information. But my question is, do you think that from a policy-making point, would it be possible to force these big Amazons, Facebooks, and all these big companies to also share, or to force them to share that information to startups, or that would only remain as their private information?
Yeah, when I'm thinking about providing access to data, then I'm thinking about our public sector and those data created by in public sector or publicly owned by publicly owned utilities, for example. But I'm not ready to say that startups, for example, they are thinking about custom bases. You have to open your data sets to everybody. You invested huge amounts of money to create these custom bases, and we have to accept entrepreneurial freedom and to say that you have to share those data with everybody. Sorry, it's too much. It's not about free market economy. But we launched many proposals on EU level to provide better access to data to our startups, to our small and medium-sized businesses, and I think it will be useful for you and to have some dreams, to get data for they collected in some other enterprises by Rolls-Royce or Microsoft or Amazon. No, it's too much.
Fair enough. Oh, we have another down here for our next question.
Yes. Thank you for the talk, firstly. My question is, you talked about artificial general intelligence and singularity. Does the European Commission have any plans to lessen the risks that AGI or artificial superintelligence might bring in the future?
What's your Terminator plan?
Exactly about that kind of situations, possible situations. I was thinking about when I was talking about those ethical guidelines. So about things which were created by human beings and which were not always used to reach some kind of good aims. So. Our aim is to create human-centric artificial intelligence, not state-centric, government-centric AI or AI-centric AI, human-centric AI. It means that human beings, they have to have all this control over those systems. And it's written also in those ethical guidelines that we will launch very soon.
How do you mandate that in a free market? How do you make the free market act ethically like that?
Well, in China, for example, they are using also AI, and they created their social credit system. But I don't think in Europe, or people, they will accept systems like this social credit system, where your future will be determined by some kind of acts or activities which took place in your history. So I think it's too much for us.
I think so. Well, there you go. If the free market relies on the people accepting it, so will the people accept that level of thing, not in Europe, not European values?
We don't have to think that only in Europe we are thinking about some kind of ethical guidelines or human-centric approach or something like this. Those global service providers, for example, talking about Microsoft, they have their 6 ethical principles to deal with AI. IBM has its codes. Google has 200 pages. So those global service providers, they have their ethical principles to deal with AI. Now the question is, where are those, our European ethical principles protecting European values?
Makes sense. Okay, let's go. We have a few. We're going to keep this going. One over there, the lady. Thank you, ma'am.
Well, thank you for your talk. First of all, I would like to share that I'm concerned a little bit. I don't know whether I have to be pleased and concerned about DeepMind. Just yesterday, they launched the game spacecraft, and they had the agents that can be develop self-learning. And this is, I don't know how the government, I don't know, even the European Commission, how do you think about that? Because if a company like DeepMind, and they can have agents that can develop self-learning, so they can use it. I don't know how you think about that, because I'm really concerned about how will be the future in this area of self-learning and develop smart AI. And this is, I think, related to singularity. So this is one of the concerns I would like to know. And according to AI, I don't know whether you actually have been using AI practically in government for education, for instance, because I think we're suffering from having good teachers. So can we have a relationship between AI and human? Not just between AI, because I think the vision is we get rid of humankind and everything is about AI, but is there still a plan about AI to AI and AI to human? So we don't lose the loop that's between human beings. I would like to hear from you that. Thank you.
Well, when thinking about AI, we don't have to think about future we will have after 10 or 20 years. AI is already here. So, of course, we have to be not afraid, but worried about our future connecting